Hello, boys and girls. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Let's go with the lab. So we are configuring the static routing lab 19. I will share for this specific lab, I will share the GNS3 files and the packet tracer. In fact, you already have the link, so you can download all of the packet tracer labs that we will be configuring. So what I will be sharing in a compressed file is basically the GNS3 lab that I created. It was a little bit difficult because it didn't exist anywhere and I have to create it from zero. But what I did is that I used the Packet Tracer Lab in order to create a version for the GNS3 Lab. It's a little bit different. Basically, it's the same, but we're going to do this. We're going to work alone and configure the Packet Tracer first, and then work in the GNS3 Lab. So let's do the following. Let me just close this for now. I'll open those in a moment. We are going to follow the instructions. So basically, IP connectivity and OSPF are pre-configured on all devices where necessary. Do not make any changes to the IP addressing or OSPF. The company policy uses connected interfaces and next hops when configuring static routes, except for load balancing or redundancy without floating static. Connectivity must be established between subnet 172.20.20.128, that is the internet network, and what else? On the internet and the LAN at 192.168.0.0/24 on switch 1. Configure reachability to the switch 1 LAN subnet on router 2 in router 2. Configure the default reachability to the internet subnet in router 1. Configure a single static route in router 2 to reach to the internet subnet, considering both redundant links between router 1 and router 2. A default route is not allowed in router 2. Configure a static route in router 4 towards the switch SWLAN subnet, where the primary link must be through Ethernet 0/1 and the backup link must be Ethernet 0/2, using the floating route. Use the minimal administrative distance value when required. So OSPF is already configured. We don't have to worry for anything but configuring the static routes. And the first is router 2. We need to go to router 2 to configure some information there. Router 2 is right here, and I'm going to minimize this screen so we can work along in router 2. The first configuration that we are doing is adding a static route to get from the LAN to the 31.1. What is that? That will be 10.10.31. That will be the default route of router 2, one of the default route there. That will be the default route of the interface Ethernet 0/0. So we need to do that first. Config T, enable, and then config T. We are doing the following. We are running this command, the IP route command to configure a static route. IP route 192.168.0.0, that is the LAN where we are located. The LAN for SW1, then 255.255.255.0/24, and then 10.10.31.1, then enter. Now we are doing the following. We are doing a ping test and we're doing a ping test to 192.168.0.1. And it will be losing some packets at the beginning, but the second one will be successfully 100%. We are fine. We do WR to save the configuration just to cover our backs in case we forget in the future. And we're moving along to router 1. we're moving now to router 1. Let's go ahead and do the following. Router 1, we are doing the following. Config T, we're doing IP route 000, all zeros, 000, all zeros. And where do we want to get? We want to get to 10.10.13.3. Where is that? Okay, so let's look at the instructions. Router 1 needs to look towards switch 1. And that will be the network related to this IP address. It will be actually the next hop IP address. So maybe this one is 13.3 and this one is 13.2. That is probably what is happening. So we need to get to 10.10.13.3. And that is probably the IP address on router 3, the next hop IP address. In fact, we can validate that. If we go to router 3, we might be able to validate that. Let's do that. Show IP interface brief. In fact, it is that one. So this one, if we do a ping to 10.10.13.2, we should be able to reach router 1 somehow, hopefully. But maybe we need to apply the ACL. Okay, we're not worry about that. We'll not worry about that for the time being. So we need to configure this static route. We did it successfully. Let me see if with this static route, we are able to complete this ping test. 172.20.20.129. And hopefully it will work, but if not, we will have to do some research. It works successfully, so we are good. I want to know the IP addresses for router 1. So IP interface brief is actually 10.10.13.1. So that's probably the reason because we were not able to reach router 1 from the beginning. When we were in router 3, let's go to router 3. We have to do a ping connectivity test to that IP address. We have to do, instead of 13.2, 13.1 is the IP address that we need to test. And we are fine. That will be a point-to-point connection from router 3 to router 1. Now we configure the next hop IP address for router 1, which will be the interface Ethernet 0/0 of router 3. Now, what is the next step? We have to do an static route to get to the internet 172.20.20.128. Okay, with a mask of 25/25, 255.255.255.128. 10.10.1.1 is the IP address where we are starting from. It's actually from router 2. So let's go to router 2. Let's do a show IP interface brief just to validate that. And you will be able to see, hopefully, the network here somewhere. 10.10. Actually, I don't see 10.1.1. That 10.10.1.1 is probably one of the next. Oh, that is the loopback of router 1. So we are trying to reach through the loopback of router 1, the internet. This is the way that we are going to do it. We are running IP route, and then we need to get to the IP address of the internet, which is 172.20.20.128 through the loopback IP address of router 1. We are using 255.255.255.128 and that 10.1.1. And if we do, and we might be able to do a ping test here to the internet IP address, which is 129. So let's do it. Ping 172.20.20.128. And it might be losing some packages, but at the second attempt, we will be reaching 100%. Nice. Great work. I want to congratulate you guys, boys and girls, for your effort. So let's go ahead and work with router 1. Before that, we're going to save the configuration just to cover our backs. At the end, we will do a copy running config startup config just in case. But we have been saving all of the configurations so far with no issues. Let's close these windows so we don't get confused, and let's move to router 1. We need to add the last configuration in router 1. That is basically to reach the network of SW1, the LAN for SW1. And we are doing that through the next hop IP addresses, the Ethernet 0/2 and 0/1 of router 2. In fact, those interfaces might be a little bit different because we are using Packet Tracer here. So it's actually gigabits in the Packet Tracer and the GNS3 lab, but you understand the idea. The idea is to get from router 1 to get to the LAN network of the switch. So the first thing we do is config T, and then we have to do an IP route. IP route. Okay, where do we need to get? To the 192.168.0.0. Okay, 128 for the IP address, 255.255 is actually 0 because it's /24. Remember, that is important. 255.255.255.0. Then we need to do this with the first IP address, which is 10.10.12.2. 10.10.12.2. Let me explain the reason why. Probably in the instructions, they stated that the primary route, the Ethernet 0/1, in this example, will be the primary route. So the IP address is 10.10.12.2, and that is the first static route that we configured. Now, the backup with an administrative distance will be the interface Ethernet 0/2, which is actually with an IP address of 10.10.12.130. Let's work on that. So we repeat the command, and in this case, we're going to do some modifications there. We need to add the next network. At this moment, it's 10.10.130.12.130, and then an administrative distance of 2. Once we have completed this, we might be able to do the ping test connectivity. Let's do an end here, and let's try the ping connectivity test. Do a ping test. 192.168.0.1. Fine, looks like great. So we are able to reach from router 1, this switch, in this case, this switch SW1 and this LAN. That would be everything for this lab. We should be all good. So what we do is, as always, we save the lab here. We close Packet Tracer, and we're going to move this completed lab to our bootcamp here that we have been working on. I am saving these labs in a specific folder, just in case, but you should be able to download those in the website that I provided to you. If you encounter any problems or issues, please let me know so I can create, and I can add the content of that specific Packet Tracer labs. But hopefully we will not encounter problems for the time being. Now let's go and do the same lab in GNS3. We want to see something different now. We're going to configure exactly the same using the same topology here and the same instructions for this lab. Since we already read the instructions, we are not going to read those again, but we're just going to go to router 2 and router 1 and add the configurations and do the testing as well. So let's open router 2. I'm going to go to router 2, open the console, so I can start doing some changes there. Okay, let me go ahead and do the following. I'm going to copy this static route. We already know that is to get from the LAN of SW1 to the 10.10.31.1. which is the IP address of this next hop address, Ethernet 0/0, router 1. So let me just copy this command and do a config T here, config T, and paste it there. After that, I'm going to copy the ping test. Let me just copy this there. And remember, in order to complete this, we have to do end here and then do the ping connectivity test. Look at that. It's amazing. Just in the first attempt, we are able to reach successfully the network from router 2 to 192 and 168.0.1. That is actually our own network. We are configuring in router 2 to get to the LAN of the switch. But why are we doing this? Oh, my mistake. It's actually not the Ethernet. It's not actually the Ethernet 0/0. It's actually the gateway, the default gateway of router 2. We are configuring the static route with the default gateway of router 2. So that was my mistake. I apologize for that. So default gateway, router 2. We have successfully completed the first part. Now, the second part is to configure a static route to get to 10.10.13.3. That will be the Ethernet 0/0 of router 3. We have to go carefully. Router 1, let's go to the console. Wait for a couple of seconds. It should be loading. Let me duplicate this session just in case. Sometimes it gets stuck a little bit. Config T. Let me paste this here. And let's go ahead and do an end here. Remember to do the WR there, just to cover a box, saving all the configurations. And now we are doing the following. We are doing a ping test to get from router 1 to the internet. With this configuration, we should be able to get to the internet from router 1. We are good. We are getting there. Amazing. WR, or let's do a copy running config, startup config. And hopefully it will be done very, very quickly here. All right, great. Let's go with the next step. We have to do a static route to get to the internet from router 2 to the internet through the loopback of router 1. So let me just copy this and let's go back to router 2. Let's do a config T and paste it there. Let's do a ping test. Let's do a ping to 172.20.20.129 and we are good. Okay, great. WR just to cover our backs. And let's continue with the next. The next one will be the first IP address to get to the LAN from router 1 to the SW1 network. So let's go to router 1. Let's do a config T, paste it there. That is the one that goes, if you remember the diagram, the network diagram, this one goes for Ethernet 1. This is actually Ethernet 1, 0/1, 0/1. It's actually the same one here, 0/1, 0/1. It's the same topology. We are doing exactly the same here. Just that the interfaces change a little bit, but it's basically the same lab. Now we're copying this and adding the route that goes through Ethernet 0/2. That is the backup route with an administrative distance of 2. So let me just copy and paste it. We are getting to the SW1 LAN /24 mask. That will be through the 10.10, the 12.30. That is the next hop IP address that we are reaching with administrative distance of 2. Now let's do the ping connectivity test from router 1 to the LAN of SW1. Let's go to router 1 there. Let's do an end. Let's do the ping test. Let me just copy and paste it there. There you go. Now WR, just to cover our backs and save all the configurations. Since we didn't configure anything in R3, we don't have to worry about R3. We just need to worry about doing all the ping tests, connectivity tests, and configure correctly the static routes in both router 1 and router 2. So let me just go ahead and do the following. Let me just go ahead and look for the name of this lab so I can share this with you guys later. Do you guys remember what is the name? This is actually the name of the lab. So let me just look for that. I need to copy this file in the downloads here. I need to copy there. And we're doing the following. I'm just going to create a compressed file for this. I need to name it with this, with the name of the lab. And I will be sharing with you guys this lab later. Control X, Control V. Okay, great, great. So it's been a pleasure, boys and girls. Take care. Remember to practice, 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 because practice makes perfect. And you will be a master CCNA expert doing these labs if you continue this road. For the time being, take care. I see you around. It's been a pleasure working with you today. Let me just end the recording for now.